President Joe Biden, Moderate Joe, is trying to talk again, and he's saying insane things. Yesterday, he gave a speech about voter ID laws, and the man called voter ID laws the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War. He really said that. He said voter ID laws to protect election integrity are an unfolding assault taking place in America today and an attempt to suppress and subvert the right to vote. There's a very serious indictment here by the president. Give it a watch.
So hear me clearly. There's an unfolding assault taking place in America today, an attempt to suppress and subvert the right to vote and fair and free elections, an assault on democracy, an assault on liberty, an assault on who we are as Americans. For make no mistake, bullies and merchants of fear, peddlers of lies are threatening the very foundation of our country. It gives me no pleasure to say this. I never thought in my entire career I'd ever have to say it. But I swore an oath to you, to God, to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. That's an oath that forms a sacred trust to defend America against all threats, both foreign and domestic. The assault on free and fair elections is just such a threat, literally. I've said it before. We're facing the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War. That's not hyperbole. Since the Civil War.
That, my friends, is insane. It's so divisive to talk about Americans like that. Remind me again, which side is the divisive side? This is your moderate Democrat Joe Biden. Extremely divisive. Oh, by the way, Press Secretary Jen Psaki delivered the same line just before Joe.
He'll lay out the moral case for why denying the right to vote is a form of suppression and a form of silencing, and how he will redouble his commitment to using every tool at his disposal to continue to fight to protect the fundamental right of Americans to vote against the onslaught of voter suppression laws based on a dangerous and discredited conspiracy theory that culminated in an assault on our Capitol. He'll call out the greatest irony of the big lie is that no election in our history has met such a high standard, with over 80 judges, including those appointed by his predecessor, throwing out all challenges. He'll also decry efforts to strip the right to vote as authoritarian and anti-American, and stand up against the notion that politicians should be allowed to choose their voters or to subvert our system by replacing independent election authorities with partisan ones. And he will highlight the work of the administration against this, the necessity of passing the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and how we need to work together with civil rights organizations to build as broad a turnout and voter education system to overcome the worst challenge to our democracy since the Civil War.
The most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War. Can we talk about the Civil War for a second? Let me give you a couple stats. 750,000 Americans died in the U.S. Civil War. 2% of the population died in the Civil War. 56,000 people died in prison camps. 8% of all American men between the ages of 13 and 43 died in the Civil War, including 6% in the North and 18% in the South. 18% of all men aged 43 and under in the South died in the Civil War. 1 out of 5. And this is what President Biden is comparing voter ID laws to. It's crazy talk. So what do these voter ID laws actually do? Yeah, they make it so you have to show an ID to vote in the elections. Oh, they also expand voting hours. And let me read it here to you so I get it right. They also prevent election officials from sending mail-in ballot applications to voters who didn't ask for one. They ban drive-through voting, expand protections for partisan poll watchers, and institute new criminal penalties for people who improperly assist others with mail-in or in-person voting. That's it. And the Democrats want to say it's Jim Crow 2.0, to have to show your ID to cast a vote. You have to show your ID to do a zillion things in this country. You have to show your ID to buy beer. You have to show your ID to see a rated R movie, to buy tobacco, to get on a plane, to do. Why wouldn't you have to show your ID to vote? Why wouldn't you have to prove that you are who you say you are and prove that you're actually an American citizen to vote in the American elections? It only makes sense. You have to show your ID all the time. Americans understand that, which is why President Biden over here saying it's not hyperbole to say that voter ID laws are part of a situation that's the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War. Hey, Biden, the majority of the country is in favor of voter ID laws. You donut? 81% of the country. Here, I've got it right here. 81% of the country is in favor of voter ID laws, including 62% of Democrats. This is from Forbes. That's a recent poll. So a very interesting question is, why is Biden or his handlers, whoever's writing his speeches that he's trying to get out without understanding any of what he's saying, why are they trying to paint all Republicans as the enemy combatants in the Civil War? Why are they trying to paint all Republicans as basically slave-owning Confederate turncoats? This is a very serious charge. Domestic threats. He said domestic threats that he has to protect the country from. What, are Republicans domestic enemies to him? Let me add that everyone knows why Democrats do not want people to have to show an ID to vote. Don't care what you say. Everybody knows. Republicans know. Democrats know. Everybody knows. The only people who might not know are your everyday garden variety Democrat voters who Democrat politicians rightly believe are too ignorant and uninformed to know that they're being lied to and tricked and deceived. Democrats want to paint everything and everyone they disagree with as racist. Nobody wants to be called racist. Democrats disagree with something, it's racist. Oh, we don't like people to have to show ID when they're voting? Oh, voter ID laws, they're racist. Oh, Civil War. They call everyone racist and tons of people fall for it. It's really, really unbelievable. I'm going to end with this few-second clip that you just watched. I took a few seconds out because there's one thing I actually do agree with President Biden on from that speech. Here it is.
Bullies and merchants of fear, peddlers of lies, are threatening the very foundation of our country.